Question.
Yes. Answer.
How do we be funny for the next 12 weeks? I mean, maybe just that, what I just did there, and maybe that's the thing.
Yeah.
But I was kind of like, I experienced this while writing the intro, where I'm like, every idea I had for a joke was like, oh, that's too dark. Oh, no, that's too dark. Oh, no, not that one. No.
Well, we'll just have to figure out how to make light of it in a irresponsible way.
I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about a book in which a woman is tied up and forced to relive that moment in which her father sexually abused her. So if we can get through that, I think we can get through this. But
good point.
Yeah, Jesus. Good book, though.
Yep.
Hello and welcome to Flanagan's Wake, a Doof Media podcast telling Mike Flanagan we belong to him. My name is Scott Daly, and I am your host. And joining me, as always, he's come back from the dead to tell me that there's an afterlife. And they also have podcasts there. It's Matt Freeman. How's it going today, Matt?
It's going well, my child.
This week on the show, in preparation of our deep dive into Mike Flanagan's next show, The Midnight Club, we are taking a look at Christopher Pike's 1994 teen horror novel of the same name. That's right. We are reading YA. I don't even think they called this YA when it was originally. I think they just called it, those books that those teens read.
Yeah.
I think we had an official designation for it. I'm making that up. I have no idea. So this is going to be an interesting one, Matt. We read one book. It's a short book. Obviously, it's a book meant for kids. So it was a pretty quick read. We're going to spend this episode seeing what we thought of it.
I am looking forward to this. I had no real expectations, and I got a lot out of this book. I think that we both see why this appeals to Mike Flanagan specifically.
Yeah, that's that's definitely one of the things I want to make sure we hit this week, because certainly we do not know Mike Flanagan. We know his work really well. We don't know him as a person, but it was very easy for me to, like, while reading this book, close my eyes and just imagine little Mikey Flanagan, little kid, little Catholic boy, opening up this book and seeing all the incredible things that would appeal directly to him and would go later on to define him and the way he approaches art and the things he thinks about and the stories he tells. 100%, I agree with you there.
I just want to emphasize that it's like structurally and thematically, like, I see.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so before we get to the Midnight Club, let's talk a little bit about Christopher Pike. So I think we haven't officially said this, but just to say it, I have not ever in my life read a Christopher Pike novel before I read this book. I believe the same is true for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't even know that I had any name recognition on him as an author, honestly.
Sure. So I did, and that's because, so as a kid, I got really I was like one of those R.L. Stine Goosebumps nuts. Like, I really liked horror as a kid, but I didn't really have an outlet for it. Like, I watched my mom read Stephen King and was like, scary books are cool. I have to read scary books. What are scary books that are okay for me to read? It's Goosebumps. And I remember R.L. Stine's Fear Street, which in my head was meant for a little bit older teenagers versus like the 8, 9, 10s that I was reading Goosebumps. And I also remember Christopher Pike, and I remember my sister reading Christopher Pike novels. And so I have this very probably inaccurate depiction of them as like a thing that teenage girls did. And so I was not welcome to it. They have very memorable covers. I am holding up a new version of the cover of this book, which is crappy. But the old covers, the covers that they originally came out with, very memorable. They all had like the name of the book and Christopher Pike in a lot of like very 90s, like fluorescent neon type lettering. You'll see it when we actually watch the television show, because I think Mike Flanagan also really appreciated that font and that coloring, and so he includes it in the show a lot. But no, I had never actually picked them up myself, never read them. I kind of skipped right from R.L. Stine and Goosebumps with a brief stop and some fantasy and sci-fi, and jump straight to Stephen King and that level of horror. So just kind of missed me on this. I think it's just like a timing thing, right? He really started Christopher Pike in '85. And I think there were a time there where I think he was churning out like 3 or 4 books a year. These are and I tried to do some research on Christopher Pike, and Matt, there's not a lot out there, interestingly enough. I didn't know this. Christopher Pike is a pen name. His real name is Kevin Christopher McFadden. And yes, Matt, I know your first follow-up question was, it was specifically named after the Christopher Pike from Star Trek. So yes, that was an intentional choice of his.
My second question was going to be, is he related to Gates McFadden? And the answer is no.
No, fortunately, no. His first novel was Slumber Party, which was published in 1985. My understanding is he wasn't even trying to write teen fiction. It's just he was struggling to get published, and one of his, I think, is his agent or a publisher said, "Hey, we're putting like a teen horror collection together. Could you try to write something for us for that?" And he said, "Sure." And he wrote Slumber Party. And they were like, "No, this is." I think the quote I read in the interview was, "No, this book is too good for what we're trying to do. We can't take it." I don't know a lot about his overarching themes across his books. What I do understand from what I read is a lot of the themes of this book. This book focuses a lot on God and religion and belief, and it also focuses a lot on kind of Eastern philosophies on some of this stuff. And this book really turns over those. And my understanding is that is a commonality amongst Christopher Pike. These are things that he likes to explore across his novels. But The Midnight Club is not the book I was expecting.
It's certainly not the book that the book advertises itself as being on every single place where you look at a summary of what the book is about.
Yeah. Do you mind? It's a little bit long, but do you mind reading this back? This is what's written on the back of the book for us, for our benefit.
With pleasure. Rotherham House was sorry, right off the bat. Rotherham Home was a hospice for young people, a place where teenagers with terminal illnesses went to die. Nobody who checked in ever checked out. It was a place of pain and sorrow, but also, remarkably, a place of humor and adventure. At the hospice was a group of 5 young men and women who called themselves the Midnight Club. Every night at 12, they met and told each other stories, tales of intrigue and horror, of life and death. True stories, made-up stories, and stories that fell somewhere in between. But one night, in the middle of a particularly scary story, these 5 people make a pact with each other that says that the first one of them who dies is to make every effort to contact the others from beyond the grave. Then, one of them does die.
Ooh.
Okay. So obviously my stupid voice I did there was to draw attention to the fact that this is a terrible, terrible way of summarizing the story.
Yeah.
It is not a horror story at all. Let's just say that. This is the first comment I wanted to make. It's not a horror story. It's not in the horror genre at all.
Yeah. Only to the level that it is horrifying that children get and die of cancer. Right. That's a horrifying fact.
So I've never read A Fault in Our Stars. I know you have.
I have.
I just kept thinking this is A Fault in Our Stars. This is we're going to tell a dramatic story about a really sad situation about young people dying of cancer. And they're afraid of death. And so they're talking about what might happen after death and concepts around reincarnation and they talk a lot about their guilt and their regrets, and they all have their own life philosophies. It's very nuanced. It's very philosophical and quiet. It's not very plotty at all. The plot it is very, it's what it needs to be, but it's very spare. And to try to pitch this as a horror novel, and especially with that cover you just showed me, it gives a completely wrong impression. I said I had no expectations for this novel. But that's not entirely true, because just the cover and the the two sentence summary of the book gives you some expectations that
Yeah.
it's going to be some kind of spooky adventure. This club is going to meet in the middle of the night. Maybe they're going to encounter something supernatural. They're going to have to defeat together, or maybe you know, the stories they tell in their vignettes are all going to be individual horror stories, and it's going to be a kind of anthology, which is in fact what Mike Flanagan kind of made his show, as far as I understand it. But it's kind of none of that. It's actually just a drama, really, a tragedy.
Yeah. Completely agree. It's I just like to give the people in charge of marketing, selling, and writing a blurb for this book a little bit of charity. I think it's kind of impossible to quickly summarize like what this book is in a way that makes it like appealing to rip off the shelf and read, because it is. I think you're right. It's a drama. It's an emotional tale. It's a book for children, talking about some of the most deep and profound experiences and thoughts and struggles that we as human beings go through. And that doesn't like sing on the back of a book, right? Like that is, I think, a tall order of like, yeah, no, like this book makes it seem like there is some event and one of them is going to be haunting and they might be fighting some. I mean, this cover, which is bad, has like a creepy bird on it. Like, what?
Yeah.
There's a lightning bolt and a creepy bird. There's no bird. There's no bird in this at all. But like the majority of the book is these stories, is the stories that they're telling during, I think, 2 editions of the Midnight Club. But the stories themselves are, in a kind of a perfect way, really just the ways in which the children are processing the things that they're feeling about and struggling about, is like in a way that, like, I mean, this book is not talking down to its audience. And I think that's really commendable that Christopher Pike is talking about some of the most tragic and horrifying things that any person will ever have to go through ever. But he's not really treating you like you can't understand that or couldn't empathize with that. But he is, because it's a kid's book. He's drawing metaphors and then kind of throughout the book explaining exactly to you what the metaphors are, which that's not a bad thing, right? We've talked about how Stephen King does that at times too, that he wants to get his meaning across and his theming across. And so he's going to work a way to kind of explain that stuff to you. And I think that's a perfectly appropriate thing to do in a book meant for young teenagers. But I was just really impressed by the fact that it doesn't shy away from any of this stuff. There's death in this book. There's sex in this book. There's AIDS is featured prominently in this book, although we don't realize that until the very end. It is not holding back on any front at all.
Yeah, there's suicide, assisted suicide.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I thought it was interesting to me because it struck what I felt was actually a pretty impressive balance, where at no point did I feel like it was really being maudlin or manipulative. Mm-hmm. Because that's maybe I should give it even more credit for that, because there's a very fine line with this stuff where you feel like the author is just leveraging these sad things to, in kind of an exploitative way, to just make you feel bad. And really at no point did it feel like the author was just trying to make me feel sad. Like it really just felt honest. Like it was a very close third person. Third person. And you just felt very much embedded in this character's point of view. And her Ilanka, her like denial at certain points. Her crush that she feels, which is just very earnest, and it all just felt very relatable and human and grounded. And that, yes, there are a couple of very emotional moments in there, but even the super emotional moments, it was like, yeah, this feels like an honest and accurate representation of human psyche reacting to a terrible, stressful situation, or terrible news, or a beautiful moment of connection, as the case may be. And I really I really like that about this book. I wanted to say that prominently in this conversation because definitely it's not like a great book. It's not going to be near the top of my list of all timers, but
Sure.
its commitment to that honesty and like lack of, again, like maudlin rubbing your face in it. I really admired that, actually. I think, I was like, well, where would I rank this book? And I was like, probably somewhere like in the middle of the pack of all the books that you and I have ever covered together, like for book club and stuff.
Sure.
Which is pretty high, honestly, because most of the books we read are pretty good,
Yeah. 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 I mean, we'll maybe get into details here in a sec, but I really like also how it is, I think honest is a really apt word for it. And part of some of the honesty I like is that like, it is, I think, actually like secretly very difficult to do things badly and on purpose. And what I mean by that is like some of these kids and the way they tell the stories, and especially Spence's stories, they're not good. They're bad stories, right? And I think that's like intentional. Like Spence is not worried about any of the rules of storytelling that you or I think or talk about. He's just furious and angry, and he's venting. And he doesn't care about consistency, and like people are constantly interrupting, being like, well, wait, that doesn't make sense. He goes, no, it's fine. What, like, they're just not good story. They're not good stories. They're not. But that's okay, because that's part of the point. That's part of what we're doing with his stories and his section of the book. And I think that's actually like sneakily difficult to do that in a way that doesn't feel, I guess, like that you're being talked down to, as a reader. Like I can imagine what I really did like this book quite a bit. I feel like a 13-year-old me would have been absolutely blown away of like, you can talk about things like this, you can experience things like this. And like I think in the interview, Mike said it was like, I didn't know you could do this in a book. Like, and I could totally see why he said that, because it's like, wow. That was kind of my first experience reading Stephen King, and I was a little bit older than that, but like, especially in a quote unquote kids book.
Yeah. It definitely covers a lot of emotional and thematic ground in a relatively short book, right? I mean, a lot of the books we cover will be thematically rich, but they'll also be 4 times as long as this book. Whereas I think this book really, on a per page basis, it actually is astonishingly successful.
Yeah.
I want to return to what you said about the characters and their individual stories. Despite them being sort of technically bad, they're like emotionally good. They're like emotionally, they're memorable. They all speak to that character and what's going on with that character, where it's very clear to, like, I made some notes just so I'd have my mind in order, but like it's very clear that Spence is dominated by resentment and thoughts of like revenge and duplicitous characters, because it's like the idea of betrayal is very much on his mind. Anya is, all her stories are about regret and contradiction, which is this feeling, this unresolved feeling of contradiction and regret is at the center of her.
Yeah.
Ilanka, I would say all her stories, actually hers are the ones that are probably the most worth diving in deep on, but basically I see them as being vignettes where meaning consists of small important moments amid a harsh life where even the character themselves doesn't understand the meaning. But very often it's the harshness itself that creates the opportunity for meaning. That seems like a motif. And Kevin, I left for last, actually, because I was least sure of it. But something about like wisdom obtained through suffering seems to be at least what Kevin is aiming for with his stories. I mean, I was less. Part of it is I'm the least like Kevin in some ways, so I found it difficult to connect with. But that just might be a me thing. So just wanted to go through all those just to say, like, their stories convey who they are, which is fantastic characterization. It makes the characters very memorable and feel very deep.
Yeah, and it's like maybe a bit maudlin here for a second. Like, it's such a good idea as a launching point to explore that I completely understand why when Mike Flanagan is like, I want to do, like, I don't think this is his favorite Christopher Pike book. I think there's a book called Remember Me that I think I remember him saying is like his favorite of the Christopher Pike books. But this one feels like the most adaptable in that special kind of Flanagan way. And it's because he can, it is both a story about storytelling, but is also a story about storytelling that affords him the ability to pull in all the other Christopher Pike stories, right? That's something that we will see as we move through the television show, that a lot of the names of those episodes are named after other Christopher Pike books. We're not going to read those books like we did for Henry James. And we got Mike's permission for that, folks. So don't get angry. I think my sister texted me and was like, I can't believe you're not going to read all the Christopher Pike books. How could you do that? And I was like, Mike said we didn't have to. And she goes, it doesn't matter. You should still do it. And I was like, I, as much as I was pleasantly surprised by this book, I still think like I'm ready to move into the show now. So I'm kind of glad we elected to go that way. But I think it is just an idea that's kind of rich for exploration. And part of that is this incredible setup that Pike has done, and also just these characters that he's drawn, and the windows into those characters. And just like, and I think just for me specifically, the idea of a story about storytelling that allows characters to express themselves through their storytelling is like catnip for me specifically, because I just really like that idea. And so, yeah, I was like on board the second I started reading it.
Yeah.
So where do you want to go as we dive in detail, Matt? I figure we could just go through each character one at a time and kind of dive deep into their stories and how we feel about them, and maybe at the end zoom back out and conclude as a whole.
Sure. Yeah, let's do it that way. I think that's probably best.
So let's start with our guy Spence. He is the first story we actually get to hear in the book, and he tells two stories over the course of the book. The first is about Eddie, a Vietnam veteran who goes to France to seek revenge on the France for Vietnam, because they were there first. Sure.
Okay.
He climbs the Eiffel Tower with the intent of shooting random people. He brings Linda, his old girlfriend, who also happens to live in Paris, and he's mad at her too, because she left him when he was in high school. The way the story ends is he shoots Linda, and she shoots him, and then she gets blamed for all the shooting, and he finds out that Linda actually has a daughter, and he goes and takes the daughter, and they go home and live happily ever after, apparently. And that is a common theme of his story too, because the second story is about Sid, a magician who gets this young woman Mary as a partner, who is like ostracized by the group. She messes up his magic show, and so everyone hates him. So he seeks revenge on them by burning them alive in the gym. She helps out, and then he realizes that she's manipulating him and saws her in half and killing her, and gets away with it. I think that getting away with it seems to be a pretty important part. That's the way Spence's stories always end.
Yeah, it's our protagonist is a bad person who is full of hate and resentment.
Yeah.
And they do bad things, and then they get out of it scot-free. Often there's like a secondary, I guess in both of them, there's a secondary character who kind of who ends up suffering the brunt of their terrible choices.
Yeah.
Although interestingly, in both cases, the secondary character is not exactly innocent.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and this is one of those ones where, like, I think maybe a first time reader, you're going through and you're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to make of that. And it's not till the very, very end of the book that we get told, oh, Spence does not have cancer. Actually, what he has is AIDS. He's a gay man, and he has AIDS, and it's the 90s. And so he feels like he has to keep that secret from everyone. There is a scene, I don't know if you remember it. There's a scene where they're planning on doing a blood oath, to like agree with their pact on the first one dies, we'll come back and tell the other ones. And Spence is very uncomfortable with that. And now in retrospect, that makes sense. And I think that's the way his stories work as well. In retrospect, once we learn that about him, that not only he has AIDS, but that he has this this incredible amount of guilt because he gave it to his boyfriend, who was the perfect boyfriend. And he gave it to him, and he didn't tell him. He didn't tell him he had AIDS. And he's harboring a great amount of guilt. So he's angry, like right. He's like a homosexual man in the 90s that is closeted, and so he's kind of both angry at the world, but he also hates himself.
Yeah.
And so these stories reflect that pretty perfectly.
Yeah, he wants to lash out. He believes that he deserves punishment and that he has somehow been spared that punishment. Or maybe that, he deserves worse than death or something like this. He does ultimately tell his story directly, right? So it's important, I think, in all of these cases to mention, right? Like, so those are the two stories that he tells, but then he also tells a third story, which is his own story. He tells his own true story to Ilanka. And that is also a story, right? And that's part of the healing. I think for all these characters, that's one of the ways in which the book like operates to not just be depressing, is that you feel like each of these characters, I really think all of the characters, they find some measure of peace before they die.
Sure.
And usually it's through the fact that they're able to share their story, to share their terrible either guilt in a couple of cases or fear, find some kind of human connection, and then pass on in a kind of on their own terms. And that's what I guess worth saying, right? Like when I put this book down, I wasn't like, oh Jesus, like I was like, that was weirdly uplifting and like it just kind of made me feel good about humanity, even though it's sort of objectively sad subject matter. So that's how that, like, again, I'm belaboring this point when we're talking about Spence, because it's like, wow, these are really depressing stories about a guy who really doesn't like himself. But by telling these stories, and especially telling his own story, you believe that he's kind of unburdened himself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's such an important point, because it's like, they're kids and they're going through a thing that no human being should ever have to go through, but especially not a kid, right? Like the idea of being forced to face your own mortality at such a young age is like not the way this is supposed to work. It is antithetical to every way this is supposed to work. It's fundamentally awful and unfair. And yet these kids are being burdened with this. And they don't really fully know how to process it. And so the way they're processing it is through these stories. And I think it's no accident that every one of these characters eventually tells their story, but they can only do that after telling another story, a made-up story that is helping them find the words to express what they're going through and what they're feeling and how to understand these things. I think that's rather beautiful and very sneaky in a character like Spence, when you're hearing these stories and just like this is, and even like everyone else in the group kind of laughs them off as just like, these are just like, oh, Spence is like ultra violent, absurd, ridiculous, like a little kid, like really into violence, telling those kind of violent stories, but there's meaning and profundity underneath it all. Yeah.
Maybe before we go to the next one, also worth it to point out that like this is close third person with one point of view character. So it's Ilanka who's hearing all of these stories, and it's not just listening. She's also providing her empathy, her opinion in some cases, her support. She's always just a non-judging presence. And she has her own kind of worldview, right? Where we'll get to her in a second, but I think that's part of why she is the character that she is.
Yeah. We should have maybe started with Sandra, who is the one character that never tells a story. And we learn the reason for that is because she's not actually supposed to be here. She has Hodgkin's lymphoma, I believe, but she was misdiagnosed. It is actually not a terminal version of that cancer. And so she gets to leave. She tells one story during the course of the book, Matt, and I'm really looking for your sharp analytical mind on this one. She tells a story about how she got drunk and had sex with a random person in the woods
Uh-huh.
one time.
And she's portrayed as being really uptight and conservative, and
Very
they're all like,
conservative, very
huh,
religious. Yeah.
huh,
Yeah.
really?
Was it true? What's your read on this?
I felt like it just didn't contain any emotional truth. It may have been true.
Sure.
I mean that's I'm almost just like, it doesn't matter whether it was technically true or not, because it didn't really communicate anything. Like so in other words, all the other characters are trying to communicate something, regardless of whether the story is true. They're trying to they're in pain, and the story is an attempt to express that pain, whether they know it or not. And in her case, it's almost just like, here's a scandalous story that will titillate everyone. That's what it felt like to me. I don't know. It was a pretty minor part of the book. I don't know that I even remember it that well. What did you think?
I think she's like kind of desperate to feel like she belongs in this group, but no, she doesn't, maybe on some spiritual level, right? I think that's something Ilanka says a little bit later, is realizing that, oh, this is why she never told a story. This is a group meant only for the dying, and she was not one of us. And so that, but she's kind of desperate to belong, and so they get a little drunk, right? And maybe you could argue that it's like a truth serum that has her finally reveal some deep dark secret of her, but maybe it finally allows her to loosen up enough to where she's willing to just make up something to feel part of them. She gets to tell a story, and it's also a story that damages or warps their preconceived notion of her as this very conservative, straight-laced type of person.
Yeah. It's possible. It's also possible that it's true. I mean, there's no such thing as a conservative teenager,
Yeah.
It's a contradiction in terms. So, but it's just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to take away from it.
Yeah. No, I don't know either. I mean, ultimately, I think the only thing to take away from it is that, like, it really cements. I mean, one thing we haven't said yet is the thing that they say at the beginning of every meeting is, "I belong to you," right? It is not like this. I call this edition of the Midnight Society to order. Like in, gosh, what was the name of that Nickelodeon show that I just blanked on?
I don't know. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Oh my God.
Did we not?
People are going to be screaming at me. I have to look it up now so I don't get 20,000 emails. Nickelodeon scary stories.
To Tell in the Dark.
Are You Afraid of the Dark? Are You Afraid of the Dark? There we go. I got there. Yeah, they don't say something like that. It's just, "I belong to you." And there's this real, I think, undercurrent of this idea that these people are together and they belong to each other and they are part of each other because they are all like peers in this experience that nobody else can quite understand, right? I think this is something that Ilanka ends up very meanly expressing to Kathy, Kevin's girlfriend, that, like, he doesn't belong to you anymore. He belongs to us. He's with us. And just to step back a minute, like, this is a hospice in which children go to die. I know they're all like, I keep saying children. They're like 18. They're like young adults, but still, like, as a 40-year-old man, that's children to me. They're going to this place to die, away from their family, away from their loved ones. They feel separated and they choose to come here, right? Like, this is a hospice in which these people choose to go here. And it's because they're lost and they feel alone, and this group gives them some sense of belonging. These are people that perhaps the only people in the entire world that can understand what I'm going through. And so Sandra, in that, it just doesn't belong. And the way Pike demonstrates that is first showing all the ways in which she doesn't belong, and then revealing the why of that later.
I like that. I mean, I think you're right. I think on a more doylistic level or whatever, her role in the story is just for there to be one person who doesn't belong, so that Ilanka can have this moment of thinking maybe she's going to survive because there's the rumor of someone in the hospice was misdiagnosed and they're going to get to go home, and she immediately goes, "Oh, it's me. I know it's me," and it's just not. It's Sandra.
And Christopher Pike knows that we know that it's not her.
Yeah.
He really sets this up beautifully. Like the opening of the book is her like taking her herbal remedies and being like, "This is what's gonna work. I'm gonna eat healthy and drink healthy, and I am special. I am gonna beat this thing." And you're just like, "Oh no."
Yeah. I again, just to talk about how it manages to be incredibly like touching without feeling maudlin, is like, you can tell like she's just getting worse. She's getting worse and worse, and she's in complete denial, and she's willfully misinterpreting the things that are objectively happening to her. And that, to me, again, I was just like, yeah, that just feels human. That doesn't feel like you're trying to manipulate me. That just feels like what a person would be, thinking in the situation.
I agree, and I want to say something here. You made the Fault in Our Stars connection, and ultimately, I know you haven't read the book, but I mean, it's not wrong. I think one thing I'll say about the Fault in Our Stars is that book made me weep tears, like real tears pouring out of my eyes as I read that book. This book did not make me cry, and I'm not saying like this book has not made people cry. I'm sure people have cried reading this book, but I do think the difference here is, and much respect to John Green, we love the Green brothers, and we, being me, Matt, irrationally hates them. Tell me I'm wrong.
Finish your sentence, and then I'll address the slander.
But I do think John Green's book is like, and it's not a bad book. I think it's trying to make you cry. I think that is the goal of the book, is it wants to make you cry. And I would say that I think this book kind of wants to make you think a little bit more than just, it doesn't just want you to be sad. It wants you to feel moved. It wants you to consider. It wants you to think. It wants you to empathize in a way that's more complicated than just tears.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell everyone why you hate the Greens.
Well, so I read at least 4 different John Green novels. I don't remember exactly how many, but I just kind of got sick of them. That's all. That's okay. I don't hate them. If I read that many of them, then I must have liked some of what I was getting. But I think I just felt like, okay, I get the shape of the thing that you're doing here, John. And then when Fault in Our Stars came out and I heard what it was about, I was like, I feel like with 4 John Green novels under my belt, I can just write that in my head. I know exactly what that's going to be. I don't really want to read it. So that's not really a criticism. That just is what it is. And I love Hank Green. Hank Green is great. Hank Green is a literal national treasure.
I am being cheeky and an asshole. I think the real only true statement out of all this is Matt does not hate the Green brothers. He's just incredibly jealous of their lives.
Yeah.
And wishes he and his brother were John and Hank Green.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely true. Yeah.
Anyway, I think you're right about what this book is and isn't doing, especially with Ilanka, and why it didn't make me cry, but certainly did move me. So yeah.
No, I just 100% agree. It's not trying to. It's not going for that. Like that's what I respect about him. He's not just like, yeah, I'm gonna write Bridge to Terabithia. I was thinking about that comparison where it's in terms of like the gap between marketing and reality, where like that's a book where that's marketed as like a fantasy novel for children, and it's actually a harrowing, heartbreaking tragedy, which is supposed to make you cry. And this is like Bridge to Terabithia mismarketed, but it's not just trying to manipulate you. It's trying to show you something. I think bring you to some kind of truth that okay.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Anya, who might be my favorite character in the whole book. Really liked Anya. So as a reminder for everyone, Anya is the one with bone cancer. She has an amputated leg, so she's riding around in a wheelchair, and she is the one on the back of the book that one of them does die. Mm-hmm. She fucking kills herself because the pain has gotten too great to bear. And so she, with the assistance of Spence, takes her own life. And her story is, I think, perhaps my favorite of the stories within the story. The two Danas story, where this perfect goody two shoes girl named Dana makes a deal with the devil. She splits her in two, and one of them gets to go off and do all the bad things that Dana wants to do, and one of them gets to be the goody two shoes still. Except the catch is they both experience these things simultaneously, so they are essentially still the exact same person, just getting to have her cake and eat it too. And turns out they don't like that, and they end up trying to kill each other. One of them does die, the other is crippled and resigned to a wheelchair. And the way the story ends is the devil returns years later and tells Dana that all she has to do to escape this hell is to kill herself. And in retrospect, Anya's definitely telling a story about herself this entire time, right?
Doesn't Ilanka even point out that like Anya and Dana are obviously, the same name basically?
Yeah.
This is a great one. I mean, it's a fun. At this point in the book, I think I still thought that we were going to be telling like an anthology of stories, which we kind of are, but I thought there would be more of them, is what I mean. And I was like, oh, this is a fun one. Like, this is a fun kind of simple but interesting horror concept where you're like, oh, where's this going to go? And it's like, oh, they hate it, and then they try to kill each other, but they're doomed. And it's, again, the theme of her is contradiction, wanting two things at once, sort of a person who is at war with herself and hates herself for that fact, and ends up destroying herself due to those contradictions.
Yeah, because we learn in her true story that she tells afterwards is that she was dating this guy named Bill, perfect boyfriend, really loved him, felt like he was going to be the one. But for some reason she can't even fully understand, she felt the urge to cheat on him and do so in a way that she kind of knew on some subconscious level that he would discover it. And she ultimately like blames her cancer as punishment for this deed, right? Mm-hmm. And so it lies perfectly in the story, right? You, as you said, you have a person that wants to that loves this man and wants to do the right thing with him. Then you have a person that wants to be the rebel, wants to go explore, wants to do the wrong thing, wants to be bad. And these two parts of her battle, and one wins, but cripples herself in the process.
Yeah. And we have the element here of the sculpture, which, I mean, we could bring that up here. We could bring that up at the end, but why not bring it up here, right?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Where she's made this sculpture of, I guess, it's supposed to be like a sculpture of lovers representing her and Bill. And when Bill discovers her cheating, he smashes the sculpture, but the only part that breaks is the leg. And it's exactly where her leg has to be amputated later. And she sees this as, basically a sign that like the universe is directly punishing her for her sin with this cancer. And then at the end of the story, when Ilanka contacts Bill and has him come to the place after Anya is already dead, he picks up the statue, and it's totally fine. There's no broken leg.
Yeah.
And that is our one singular supernatural moment in this entire story.
You mean then one of them dies on the back of the book? It's just kind of a throwaway, not a throwaway moment. I think it's an important moment, but yeah, it is not the thing on which the entire narrative of the story hinges.
It's beautiful, right? Like you're kind of expecting it to be like some dread laden, message written in a mirror backwards in blood. No, it's the broken statue that represented her guilt has been mended through the power of belonging and forgiveness. I love it. That's what I said about the book being ultimately like uplifting and heartwarming and human.
I agree. I totally agree. I love it. One quote that I pulled from this section that I just thought was like, again, simple writing, but good writing. Like simple doesn't mean bad, right? I love this quote of, they each blamed each other for their problems. This is the two Danas. Even though intellectually they understood, they were blaming themselves. But what use are intellectual thoughts when you feel miserable, huh? And I think that just perfectly goes to define Anya as this girl who we understand she's in so much pain. Like this bone cancer is incredibly painful, and she's in so much pain, and she's in this physical pain that is just a physical manifestation of this guilt and grief that she feels about what she did. And it's just you stop being rational at that point. You stop being intellectual. Like it's too much for a person to take. And she realizes that, but she can't express that to anyone. She has to express it through the story first. There's this moment in the thing where Ilanka almost picks up on this, but we move on too quickly, where Anya finishes the story, and it's almost as if she's just like come to her own personal realization that maybe like she even subconsciously, when she was crafting the story, wasn't fully aware what it was doing. I wish I had written down the line, but there's a moment where Anya seems to have this moment of realization. It's like it's almost like, and then things happen and she gets cut off, and we never finish that thought, but it is this beat of almost realization for Anya. And again, the power of stories in order to kind of come to realizations and come to moments of profundity, I think is really cool.
Yeah, me too. Love that.
Love this character. So glad, like so many moments I was afraid they were actually going to do the thing that was on the back of the cover. And like, I was starting to see what the book was, and I didn't want it to turn into this other thing. I don't understand how did they publish this book? This is like just wild. It's awesome. I'm so glad. Maybe the 90s were just a wild time.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta. I figure it's like, look, we want to publish this. What is going to make people pick it up and read it? Okay, definitely not describing it accurately.
Right.
So let's trick them. We got to trick them.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, if you look at this on Goodreads, it's like a perfect triangle of a score. It's got, and if you read the reviews, it emphasizes my point where like an exactly equal number of people love it and hate it. And the vast majority of people are, 3 stars, or they're just like, I don't know. But I think a huge reason for this is that it's horribly marketed. And so everyone who picks it up is picking it up for the wrong reason. Right.
Yeah.
And then some number of those people are like, well, this actually was great. It just wasn't what I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I'm looking at reviews right now, and this 1-star review says, the blurb, it sounds amazing, and I was really interested in it. Sadly, the whole pact thing and the one dying doesn't happen until about 80 pages to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Matt.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about Kevin. We need to talk about Kevin.
We I was reaching for it, but you got there first.
So I agree with you on the Kevin story, by the way. So Kevin's story, The Magic Mirror, is the one story that happens over the course of 3 nights. Because Kevin likes a little suspense, but actually really because Kevin is so exhausted and close to dying that he like literally just can't speak for long enough to actually complete this story. But it's a story of a muse named Hermes, who is just sitting at the Louvre painting, and comes across this woman, Teresa, who he realizes very quickly is the love of his life. He trades his eternal life for her, follows her. They start a wonderful business together where she is a slave driver that forces him to paint portraits over and over and over again. Eventually, they move to New York and fall upon hard times, and she cheats on him. He runs away, becomes a park ranger, and then eventually a wheelchair-bound doctor. And at the very end, he finds Teresa again, paints a beautiful picture of how he looked when she met her, and that is the magic mirror at the end that allows her to see in her final moments that she is indeed very beautiful. So I think some of these lines are very obvious, right? The idea of this is Kevin communicating to Ilanka that, yes, I do love you. And I think he comes right out and says it, like the idea of like, I wish you could see yourself the way I see you. And the beauty of the way someone perceives you, and you wish you could see yourself that way. That stuff's very obvious. All the stuff in the middle, let's break it down, because I struggle with it, as I think you did.
Yeah, I struggle with the meaning of it.
Yeah, yeah,
But maybe even that. So I'm trying not to get too galaxy brain on this, but I'm like, maybe that is the meaning of it, is that it is a life of struggle and confusion
yeah.
for what is supposed to be an angel, basically.
Hmm.
It's supposed to be a being of divine, clarity and purpose, and now he has lost his purpose. He's not painting, he's not doing what he was meant to do. He's not with the person who he loves. He's floundering. And so when we say, like, what's the meaning of this? It's like that is the meaning of it, is that he can't discern any meaning in what's happening to him.
Sure.
He is lost. I really think that's close to being it. The details of, like, why does he make it, like, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think obviously Hermes is Kevin, right? I think it is worth noting that he positioned himself as this character who is incredibly good at art, and one thing we learn about Kevin is that Kevin seems like the God's gift to the world, right? Everyone else in here is poor. They came here from state hospitals, and it's like fully funded. They don't have to pay for it. Not Kevin. Kevin's wealthy. Kevin was a track star. Kevin was an excellent painter. He's good. He's very good at art. Kevin has a beautiful girlfriend who is sticking with him through this whole thing. Like, Kevin is perfect, except of course he has leukemia and is dying. And so this idea of like him telling the story that positions himself as this angelic character, but I think interestingly enough, he is a muse, right? Like he can paint. He's very good, and he is very good at painting. But in the realm of the story, his purpose, as it were, is to inspire other people. It is not to be inspirational in and of itself. And I think that's an interesting angle on it.
Yeah.
I think that says something about how Kevin feels about himself.
Yeah. And how he feels about his role in the world, and how he feels about death. I think some amount of this is, these characters trying to come up with some kind of concluding statement on their lives in many cases.
Sure. Yeah.
And his is like, have I been a positive impact on the people in my life, and have I caused them to experience love and happiness?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's trying to accomplish. And you could even see the part where he's kind of floundering in the middle as representing, like, his own life being younger and, like, losing focus on that being the important thing being cultivating happiness and love and assurance in the people that he cares about. When you're facing death, it's easier to remember that that's what life is about. But when you're like a teenager, you're really far away from caring about that kind of stuff. You're gonna get a little bit lost.
Is there any deep meaning to the idea that Teresa is clearly supposed to be Ilanka, but in the story he has Teresa cheat on him,
and then, like, have this terrible life? I mean, possibly just, I don't know, man. Like maybe in the fact that she scares away his other girlfriend, which is a kind of betrayal, not nearly on the same order, right? But
Sure.
It's like, it is a kind of betrayal of his trust. It's a kind of manipulation. I think that's close enough.
I think that's right, and I think Kevin handles that pretty beautifully, because, like, he's at the point where he recognizes he's about to die, and he just, like, that stuff doesn't matter anymore. He doesn't get mad about it. Like, he doesn't judge her about it. I found their whole thing actually very beautiful, and
I agree.
even their last moments where they get to have sex before they die. Like, I don't know. It's not like profound, but it's like very simply beautiful.
Yeah.
That these two people found each other, and what Ilanka posits is not just found each other, but have always found each other. That
Right.
are connected through eternity with each other.
Yeah. When we get to hers, we'll talk about kind of her almost, Nietzschean sense of meaning.
Yeah. But to quote your son, is that canon?
is past lives canon?
Yeah.
And yes. Just before we move on, like there is one other element which is super pervasive, which is almost so pervasive as to not bear mentioning, but it is like the centrality of romantic relationships in
Mm,
all of these.
sure. Yeah.
Literally, I mean, yeah, literally all of these characters and their stories are about romantic love, very often betrayal,
Yeah.
infidelity, um, and just this rat's nest of emotions that comes with that. I thought that was interesting, and obviously this is central to Ilanka because she really just wants to. She feels like this is one of these things that was robbed from her. She never had
Yeah.
a real boyfriend, um, and she desperately wants it, understandably.
Yeah.
It feels like this is a major thing in life that has been stolen from her, and so she's very, very fixated on it. I don't want to be unfair, but I think this is one of the reasons why she's so fixated on Kevin, is he's kind of her last chance.
Hmm.
And but all these, it's true of all these characters, though.
Yeah, I mean they're kids, man. Like
Yeah,
they're kids, and this is like these are the things that kids are supposed to be fixated on at this age, right? This is what they're supposed to be like. Their greatest worry is supposed to be: am I ever going to fall in love? Am I ever going to get a boyfriend? Am I ever going to have to like that is supposed to be the driving force of their minds right now. And the tragedy of this is that it's not. But of course, it still is because they're still kids, right? Yes, they're also kids that are dying, but they're still kids and they still think about these things. And I don't know, I appreciated the nuance of that. And you talked about honesty. The truth of it is that like even if you are a person with cancer that is dying, that does not totally define you. That you are still a person with as much complexity and as anything else. And what we haven't said it yet, a lot of these characters are kind of assholes. like Ilanka is like incredibly mean to Kathy. Anya comes off as just like an incredibly like pushy, like she's the kind of the classic like hard exterior, but once you get to know her, she's like really really kind to the people that are part of her in group. Like that's the type of person she is. Spence is, I think, similar. He's kind of angry at the world and at self, and that comes off as really Kevin is the only one that seems just kind of like consistently kind. But I love that we're allowing these characters, these children that are dying, to be characters still, and that includes being jerks sometimes and making mistakes sometimes and saying things they shouldn't say sometimes.
yeah,
There's a version of this where I think like Ilanka is a difficult character to like in some ways, especially because she's so insistently, ignorantly ignoring the signs that no, her cancer has not gotten better. It is in fact worse. Like when the doctor takes her to get the extra scan, which he's already kind of said, "Hey, I don't think we should. I don't think we need to do this." She like feels this horrible rotting pain in her gut, and it's
yeah,
like that's the cancer, Ilanka. That's what she just ignores it, and it's like because they're human and she doesn't want to die, and
yeah,
so like she of course she wants to believe that a miracle could happen.
yeah. I like what you said about them all being fleshed out three-dimensional characters and not kind of pulling any punches there. I think
Yeah,
one of the moments that the book kind of won me over was Anya, where you're totally right that, especially the way she's introduced, she's a trope. She's
yeah,
introduced as a trope, as okay, she's mean, she's rude. But then when she finally tells her story, her real story to Ilanka, it's so vulnerable and poignant. Even like it's a story where she looks terrible. Like it's not a story where she is at all trying to defend herself.
yeah,
She's like, I don't know why I did this. She's like heartbroken, and she's heartbroken because of her own nature, which she despises. And it's just like,
yeah,
God, like it retroactively elevates her characterization prior to this point, because you're like, yeah, that's all consistent. So just I agree. I admire that.
yeah. It's great. All right, Ilanka herself. Let's talk about her stories. I I found this stuff really interesting, and the is this canon joke was only half a joke, because basically all we are told that we said Ilanka is the one character that is the most in denial about her impending death. She is kind of convinced that she's going to beat it. As you said, the second the rumor spreads that someone is leaving, she's just convinced it's herself at the expense of anyone else. Um, and her big thing is that she believes in and experiences past lives. So her two stories are stories of people in her past lives. The first is a story from like ancient Egypt, and the second is a story from ancient India. Um, what do you make of these two stories, Matt?
Okay.
Let's go.
These are harder for me to parse because since we're basically in Ilanka's head, it actually just kind of seems like these are stories of past lives that she's remembering.
Yeah.
Which is fun, I think. But well, I guess there's a lot you could say about this, right? Because she's not sitting there like, what would I tell at the meeting this week? It's like, well, I'll just tell this other story that I remember from my past life.
Yeah.
So and you see in her internal monologue, it really just seems to be that she believes this is true.
Right.
And then like the coda of the story kind of confirms it, right? Like that's I think where we're headed, what we're going to talk about.
Sure. Yeah. That the epilogue is them, both Kevin and Ilanka in future lives, far into the future, together again. I mean, I think it's a wonderful thought, and I mean, and maybe the book wants it to be a little ambiguous, where you're like asking the question I'm asking right now, which is that our past lives a real thing? Was Ilanka really experiencing all this stuff, or is this just another way of her processing her fate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of one of the fun things about the story is it's sort of both. It can be, it can work on both levels, which is one of my favorite things when, genre fiction does that, where it works perfectly both ways, whether you choose to interpret it as being fantastical or not.
Yeah.
I mean, thematically, her stories very often deal with sort of being robbed of what you thought you were going to get. Mm-hmm. Which I think relates to this idea with her where she, among all of them, seems to just feel the most resentment about dying young. The rest of them have their own like guilt and various other things that they're tormented by, but she's just tormented by kind of the obvious thing, which is, hey, you're a teenager who's dying of cancer. This is super unfair and sucks, and I'm not going to get the life that I thought I was going to get. And so a lot like the stories both have elements of injustice that kind of comes out of nowhere, mm-hmm. and yearning for something that is impossible, and going to inevitably be taken from you. But even within that, there is some profound meaning to be gleaned. And I saw that, like, this is the pattern I saw. I don't even know if I'm doing a great job of like sketching it out, but it's like this is also her life. In the present, this is her experience. She is a person who feels incredible, bitterness and anger at the fact that she's been robbed of a life.
Yes.
But in the midst of that, she's having these incredibly meaningful moments with each of these characters, where she, not even necessarily realizing it, she's able to help them understand themselves and come to peace and have her own moments of deep connection with all of them. But I mean, I guess especially Kevin, but really all of them.
Yeah, no, I think we learned that it was Ilanka that kind of drove even the idea of having this club, right? Mm. That she's kind of came up with the idea. And so, yeah, the idea of it being like her way of helping people while also trying to help herself. I mean, so how do we feel about this master character? This was the thing that I was kind of most surprised by. I was like, oh, interesting. This is a recurring beat throughout her stories, that she's got some master, some prophet, some religious leader that is attempting to teach her the things she needs to know, that is present in all the stories, either through her characters in the stories meeting with him. In the India story, she gives birth to the master, but also continues to visit and be visited by the master. And then eventually, like it breaks containment of the story she's telling themselves, and we are just having dreams and actual interactions with the master in present time as well.
And Kevin draws the master, which suggests that maybe he's also dreaming about the master, which I think
Yes,
we
correct.
could also say another element where we could say it's supernatural. We could just say, hey, she told the story, he's dreaming about it.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. So there's a bunch of different things you could say about this, because I'll just say personally, I wasn't particularly moved by anything that the master was saying. And maybe that's because I kind of had my era of reading this sort of pseudo Buddhist philosophy, and I like I kind of moved past it. It kind of doesn't do much for me anymore. I'm like, yeah, but like, I mean, honestly, so my reaction when he's saying stuff about how like there is no you are not actually this person, you are not actually this personality, these things are not you. I'm just like, yeah, but like that's the thing that I like about being alive, is actually being me. I don't
Sure.
I don't just want to be some generic consciousness. If I'm reborn as a totally different person, that's just not me anymore, and I don't care.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't bring me any sense of peace. That's just like, oh, so I will die, as you're telling me. I will be dead. In other words, thank you. I knew that. So anyway, this is just me injecting too much of myself into this, but I don't know. What did you think?
No, I mean, I think that's fair. I also think perhaps that equation would change for you pretty dramatically if you were told that you are going to die and it's going to be very, very soon. And maybe you're desperately trying to find some way of justifying what the part of you that will live on. Maybe it's not this part of you. As he says, like, you think you are clever with words and attractive with your long dark hair. These things are not you. Like that there is a part of you, a core of you that will go on. I could see why someone would find that comforting. I also, to go back to our little small child, Mike Flanagan, reading this book, maybe not yet the forefront of his mind, but somewhere deep in the back of his mind, having doubts and uncertainties about this whole Catholicism thing, and reading stuff like this, and it like pinging his brain in a certain way of like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I want to pursue that idea and that philosophy, because that's opposed to the way I've been taught. And yeah, like I could see it happening.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I particularly prescribe to these beliefs either. But I understand why one would feel motivated to do that.
Yeah, I guess so. So let me step back for a second, because I'm not saying that you have to buy into the idea of there being reincarnation for the book to work. No, but what the book is doing is it's basically saying this does seem to be like the moral core of the idea that the book is presenting, by saying by having a character called the Master who gives these like didactic lessons to Ilanka, and then the book kind of ends with reincarnation being true.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Master is portrayed within the context of the story as being correct.
Sure.
And so that's why I'm confronting it more directly, rather than just kind of saying like, whatever. I mean, you can believe in a soul, you can believe in reincarnation, you can believe in whatever you want that brings you comfort. It's all fine, and maybe at different points in my life, or even in different moods, I will find different ones comforting, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying the book is choosing to put forth this one, and I'm just kind of unmoved by it, and I'm just kind of like,
I mean, I think ultimately, like, this is the one part of the book I didn't really like, and I think it's for the same reason you're expressing here. Like, I think I really find very moving and powerful this simple idea that the book declares that there is something after death, and we see this via Anya repairing the statue magically that was broken. She dies. She keeps her agreement with the rest of the group by doing this one simple thing that is so intensely personal to her, that the message is clear there, and it gets to Ilanka, and it has its intended purpose there. I love that. It's simple and yet profound and beautiful, and it works. I think to me, it feels like the master stuff is comes so out of left field, and it's almost another book at times where I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, it just like, and I'm not even saying it's bad. It just doesn't vibe for me. It feels like we have this, the story as it is of this book is pretty simple. And I think the overall themes of the book are pretty simple, but it seems like the book is working very hard at conveying these themes through the metaphors it's building and then kind of explaining to us. And then on top of all that, like sitting on top of it, it creates a master character to be the voice of the author, to basically just say, hey, Ilanka, here's what I think about existence. It just seems to me there would be like, there could be a better way of organically doing that through the stories that we're telling.
I think it already does an adequate job, right? Like I think it does a beautiful job of that through the stories that it's telling, and she already has this concept of reincarnation, and like she doesn't need to like cognitively and intellectually understand it. I think she feels it by the end. It's just kind of, I mean, like you said, another book. I was thinking about Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. Is how I was taught to say that name, even though I don't know if that's right. Did you ever read that book in school?
I did not.
That was one where I'm sounding like such an asshole today, but like it was a book I read even in high school. I was like unimpressed by it philosophically, which is, you know, saying something, because when you're like 15, you should be maximally impressionable to these things. And it was funny because our teacher was like, "This is the most spiritually moving book I've ever read, and this will change your life." And I read it, and I was like, it's okay. But that's kind of what I felt reading this from the master. I felt like, you know, you're being a little didactic. You're saying stuff that sounds like a bunch of nonsense, and I get what you're trying to say, but I don't feel it. I felt it when you were showing the characters going through these highly emotional moments. So just do that. That was working great.
Yeah. What I'm doing is debating saying something about the television show, and I think I will just hold on that. I think it's more fun for you to discover things on your own.
Okay.
I have to go back and protect the sanctity of the show mode for you in a post midnight mass world. So
yes.
Yeah, I'll just hold off on saying that. But I think we can revisit this conversation once we've gotten into the show.
Okay.
In some fun ways. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it is, and I love what you said, because I do agree that everything else in the book gets these points across in a way that I don't think we needed this mystical character to kind of just jump into the story in a way that, I just agree.
Let me just like nail this in. Like one of the quotes here, he says, "The enlightened seldom speak of birth and rebirth. They are concerned about the present moment. If you're fully alive now, it is enough." And we see that become more and more true for her as the book goes on. Like she thinks less about death because she is more concerned with her relationships with her friends and just the texture of her life. And then even after her friends are all dead, I think she's the last one, right?
She is, correct, yeah.
Even after they're all dead, she's still, she's like cherishing their memories, like in the moment, and doing things like throwing his ashes out over the water, and very, very immersed in these moments. And I didn't get the feeling that it was like, because the master told her. It's like, no, this is just the lesson she's organically learned, and this is who she is. And that was beautiful to me.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe it was one of those moments where like you're writing to children and you're like, I'm not confident that they're getting this. I got to have a didactic source of it. I think, and please don't quote me on this, because like I said, I haven't read other Christopher Pike novels, but I think the master is a character that shows up in other Christopher Pike novels as well. So this is not something that is specific and only relevant to the Midnight Club itself, which is interesting. But again, having not read those novels, I don't really know what to do with it.
Yeah. It's definitely provocative. I'm trying not to read too much into what you said about there being stuff in the show about this, but like, I think it's like intrinsically interesting to have a whole book that's really about the inevitable preoccupations of humans with their impending death,
Yeah.
and then have a didactic character who's like, just live in the moment, man. It's all groovy. And it's like, you wouldn't have written this book if that was easy.
Right.
If you could just do that.
I mean, there was like, and again, I think we're both kind of being assholes today about a book that we both really liked.
Yeah.
But my gut initial immediate reaction to the line, they're concerned with the present moment. If you are fully alive now, it is enough. You don't have to think about death. And I was like, that's fucking easy for you to say, man. She's got a tumor in her that's killing her.
Yeah.
What do you mean I don't have to think about death? It's coming tomorrow. You know, like, it's just like, it's a really easy thing to say. It's a much easier thing to do.
It's just not, I really don't think it's that helpful to say to people, like in any circumstance. I mean, there's the sense in which we're all dying, right? Like we're all faced with our mortality. And I don't find it to be helpful to.
I'm just imagining me going into this place and like walking up to one of these poor children and being like, hey, I got some advice for you. Don't worry about death. And then being like, what?
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thanks. Yeah. Who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Just call me the master.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I understand that on a like a spiritual level, there is profundity to that. And I agree. Like, I think people in general think about the future too much, think about the past too much, don't live in the moment enough. I think that is generally a true statement. It just, it rings hollow when it's didactically being thrown to a 18-year-old girl who is going to die of cancer in a week.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. But other than that, great book.
Yeah.
I liked it. I did.
I liked it a lot.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just liked a lot more than I expected to. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Are you going to like become a Christopher Pike aficionado? Or are you going to go out and read all the other ones after this?
I don't think so. I mean, I'll say this much. Since this really didn't feel like horror or really genre fiction at all, I'm curious what his like. What is the most Christopher Pike book? What is the one where it's, you know, the quintessential genre work of Christopher Pike? What is that? And I might want to read that, because reading this, I don't feel like we got a good understanding. It'd be like if you read Low Men in Yellow Coats and that was your only exposure to Stephen King. It's like, okay, that's definitely a great novel story, but it's not characteristic of Stephen King, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the one that I looked up, because I'm pretty sure Mike Flanagan said this was his favorite, was I mentioned it before, is a book called Remember Me. It is a story about a woman who dies. She was murdered and she dies and she comes back and she hunts for her killer.
Cool.
Sick. Goodreads says, making a vow to herself to find her killer, Shari spies on her friends and even enters their dreams. She also comes face to face with a nightmare from beyond the grave, the shadow, a thing more horrible than death itself. It is key to Shari's death and the only thing that can stop her murderer from murdering again. You know, there's a part of me that reads this and is like, is this gonna be like the same bullshit with the Midnight Club?
Yeah.
Where it's actually just this quiet meditation on a woman like realizing that she's dead and processing that.
Right. Ultimately realizing she wasn't even murdered, but it was just an accident.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, so I know some of the other stories and some of the other Christopher Pike books, because, and I don't think this is a spoiler, we already said that some of the episode titles are named after other Christopher Pike books. We get to experience some of those books in Mike Flanagan's adaptation in the Midnight Club. So there's some of those stories that I really like, and we'll get to those and we'll talk about those. Haven't read the books, but like they work very well in the episode format. Some of them not so much. So I think we're getting to the end here, and I just want to say, what is your going into the show, the Midnight Club? What is your expectation level? What are you thinking? what do you think you're going to get out of this? It's 10 episodes, so we'll be doing this for the next 2.5 months. What are you
Well,
thinking?
I'm I'm wondering, you know, there's going to obviously okay. So I guess I've been like micro spoiled on the concept that it is more of an overt anthology show where you have a bunch of characters and they're all telling stories, and we're actually telling the stories of just a crap load of Christopher Pike novels in
Mm-hmm.
in a way that feels reminiscent of Haunting of Bly Manor, where we're taking all these stories from Henry James and we're refactoring them and we're putting them into these new forms, but maybe with a little bit less refactoring, because it's not like we need to take a story and make it exist within the frame of another story. We just
Yeah.
need to literally have a character tell the story. So maybe they'll be more straightforward adaptationally.
Mm-hmm.
One question I have in my mind, maybe you can answer it if you don't think it's like a big spoiler, is like, are these going to actually be like told to the camera stories, or are these going to be they start telling the story and then we cut to, you know, um, I'll let you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that.
No, I mean, okay. I don't think this is a spoiler. Like, you're gonna probably watch the first episode immediately after this recording, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like when the stories are being told, we are seeing the stories.
Yeah. That's what I figured. It would be weird otherwise.
and a wrinkle on this, which again I don't think is a spoiler, is the characters in the stories that are being told are played by the Midnight Club members. So like,
Cool.
For example, if Anya is telling her story, the character in Anya's story is the actress who plays Anya, and that I think does work to draw the line between the idea that yes, these are stories that these kids are telling, but they are also talking about themselves because they're casting themselves in their own stories. Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Okay.
There are more kids than just the 5. I can say that, which makes sense. It's a 10-episode show. We probably have to expand it out a little bit, right? You will recognize 2 of the actors. Well, you'll recognize more than 2 of the actors, but 2 of the kids are. We last saw them on a lifeboat outside of on Crockett Island.
Excellent.
So yeah, you'll see Lisa and Warren once again. And yeah, I mean, I think so like Mike kind of mentioned, without going into any detail, very specifically when we talked to him, that there's a story about this show. And there's I don't want to call it controversy, but a lot of stuff went down with this show that I think are part of the reason that Mike Flanagan no longer makes stuff for Netflix.
Uh-huh.
And so I don't want to go into any details on that until we get to the end of the show. But it is kind of widely considered the weakest of the Mike Flanagan television stuff. So that I think it's going to be a lot of fun for us to really spend some time with it and dive into that, and maybe in the ways in which we disagree with that, really dive into why, and perhaps in the ways in which we agree with that, dive into why. Right? I think that I'm really I think that the fun of Midnight Mass is we both went in saying this thing is brilliant, and we know it's brilliant, and let's all spend 10 hours discussing all the ways in which it's brilliant. I think this is going to be much more. This is a thing that a lot of people struggled with. That I think was, I don't want to say too much, but I just think it's going to be fun and interesting to really dive into it in a different kind of way.
Yeah. I'll just say a thought now, and you don't have to respond. We'll just, laugh at me or tell me I was a genius later. But like, it reminds me of what we were saying or what Mike was saying about Netflix wanted Midnight Mass to be all fangs and vampire attacks. And that's just not the story he was telling. And
right,
this book we just read does not have a ghost appearing in a mirror and blood coming down from the ceiling. And I feel like Netflix that they read that Dust Jacket cover and they go, oh, so there's going to be a bunch of spooky shit that happens in this.
Yeah.
And they're going to try to make that happen. And maybe Mike Flanagan doesn't want to make that happen.
Yeah, we bought that. That's what we wanted. that.
Right. Right. How
Yeah,
are you going to
no,
market a bunch of meditative cancer kids?
yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait for you to watch this show. So I want to be fully transparent with everyone here. There was a moment in the interview with Mike where he said, yeah, Netflix has all this data on everyone, and it knows that most people bail on a show 2.5 episodes in. And I went to watch the Midnight Club because I watched the entire show in preparation for you and I getting to dive into it, because frankly, I had never finished the show. And so I went to go ahead and do that because I wanted to go back into my role of guiding you through the show. And to do that, I needed to actually watch the show. And I booted up Netflix and I pulled up the Midnight Club. And where had I dropped off? Exactly in the middle of the 3rd episode. Like it was that was exactly me. And I don't even remember why. Like I don't have a specific reason for it. There was not like a thing that happened in the show that maybe said, oh, I'm not enjoying my time with this. It just like life happens sometimes. Yeah. But I just thought it was so funny that it was literally the 2.5 episode mark. Exactly. Yeah. Data doesn't lie sometimes. So, but I have watched the entire show. I watched it over the last month or so. So I am ready to dive into it in detail with you again. And I've got quite a lot to say about a lot of it. So, I think this is going to be really fun. I think we're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
A whole lot.
Yeah. Me too.
All right. Well, that was Christopher Pike's The Midnight Club. Good conversation, Matt. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I think we have a discussion question actually from like 3 weeks ago that we didn't do in our overview episode, but we're gonna bring it back now.
Yeah, the question was, what is your favorite scientific explanation of something supernatural? Which was obviously reference to the thing that happened toward the end of Midnight Mass. I'm going to go back to being vague and unspoilery for no reason.
No offense to anyone listening, I want to meet the person that doesn't listen to us talk about Midnight Mass and hasn't seen that show, but sees a Christopher Pike Midnight Club episode and says, yeah, that one. I'm going to listen to that one.
You never know, man. All right. So from Walking Dude 22, they say, obvious answer. It isn't exactly supernatural, but it is a fantasy element. So I think it counts. In the movie Reign of Fire, ancient dragon eggs hatch, releasing fire-breathing dragons upon the modern world. The scientific explanation for the fire-breathing is that the dragons spit 2 venoms that ignite when they mix with each other in the air. I always thought that was a brilliant way to explain the fantastical element of fire-breathing.
Is it McConaughey that says natural napalm or something like that?
Natural napalm. That's such a good...
It's McConaughey, right?
Well, I mean McConaughey and Christian Bale are the 2 leads.
Yeah,
and
I just wanted to make sure I was remembering it correctly.
It's also got a bunch of other random great actors. What a great movie, man.
It's such a wild movie. I do kind of love it.
Yeah,
it's got Gerard Butler in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Gosh, this is taking me back.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, half of the discussion question is just me remembering fun movies I've seen that I haven't thought about in a long time.
Totally.
But yeah. Oh, Reign of Fire. Great movie. Mary Liz 19 says, my favorite scientific explanation of supernatural phenomenon is the haunting of Hill House. Hey, Nell is haunted by the bent neck lady in her sleep, but the doctors diagnose it as sleep paralysis. As someone who has experienced sleep paralysis, I know it can make you doubt reality. I remember that I could hear this presence in this room. I could see my bedroom really clearly, but couldn't move my head to see where the noise came from. Then a shadow came closer to my bed, and my field of vision very slowly. Suddenly it pounced on me, and I woke up. This happened 3 times in my adult life, and back then I had never heard of sleep paralysis. I'm a very pragmatic person, but it was enough to make me wonder if I was haunted. Then I saw Hill House and finally got a scientific explanation for this phenomenon. Or did I? Maybe I was haunted by my future self. I have to say, I can't imagine a thing that sounds more terrifying to me than sleep paralysis, and I'm very glad that I do not have it, and I hope I never get it, because that sounds awful.
That sounds like a particularly bad case. Yeah. I mean, I think I've had technical sleep paralysis, but not the form where there's like a fucking demon in your room, just the form where you can't move, which is disconcerting, but not, heart attack inducing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Don Zest says, Like all good children of the 1900s, odd, episodes of The Simpsons are always in my thoughts.
I don't like that.
In the episode Lisa the Skeptic, the skeleton of an angel is found buried at the site of a mall being built. Most of the town are calling it a miracle, while Lisa is adamant that angels are not real and searches for a rational explanation. She has a moment where she thinks something supernatural is afoot when the angel appears to speak. Turns out it was all a publicity stunt by the mall developers for the aptly named Heavenly Hills Mall. A line that Marge tells Lisa has always stuck with me. There has to be more to life than just what we see. Yeah, that was one of those emotional Simpsons episodes.
Yeah. It's not fair that they get to be the most hilarious show of all time and then also be really emotionally impactful every once in a while.
Yeah. It's great.
Darren Longbeard says, I really enjoyed the book series The Strain by Chuck Hogan and Matt's favorite person, Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, yeah.
It's a vampire series, but the premise is pretty fun, as the vampirism is spread through the parasitic worms that alter your DNA and structure. I recall the vampires having a retractable stinger that shoots out of their mouth that they use to both consume blood and transfer the worms, but I really liked the biology of it, because the stinger was basically their detached esophagus that they regurgitated. The series is 3 books, and vampirism as a biological weapon was a really cool concept. Yeah, didn't they make a show? I think they made a show called The Strain based off those books as well. And I feel like I have vague memories of watching the first few episodes.
Yeah. I think this came up in a previous discussion question, prompting me to watch a bunch of YouTube clips of it, which is my go-to when I hear about something that sounds interesting, but I'm never going to watch it.
Yeah.
And it seemed pretty cool. Yeah.
You know what I did last night, Matt?
What?
I put on the first episode of The X-Files and I watched it. To go to bed too.
Awesome.
Because I don't know if you heard it. It's announced that Ryan Coogler is rebooting the X-Files.
I did not hear that.
Which is amazing because Ryan Coogler is amazing.
Yeah.
So I watched the first episode of the X-Files and I was like, man, the X-Files is really good.
Now I have to know who's going to be Mulder and Scully.
I don't know if they're there was a casting announcement. I forget who the woman was. I don't know if they're doing like a Mulder and Scully thing or if they're just doing like this is the unupdated version of the X-Files with new agents doing things.
The X-Files is a will they won't they sexual tension show with a horror B plot, Scott. What are you talking about? That's
they could still do that. It doesn't have to be Mulder and Scully.
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't actually looked into this, but I'm there for it.
Okay.
We're going to start our X-Files podcast next is what I'm saying.
Okay.
There's only 700 episodes.
I will say regarding Del Toro and vampires, I think one of our favorite Del Toro things we covered was like his very, very, one of his first few movies
Kronos.
Kronos, about a vampire beetle that lives in a clock thing.
No way. Del Toro doing a insect clock thing?
I really like that movie though. It's a
great movie.
And I like the depiction of vampirism and the way he uses it to explore themes. I really like that movie.
Me too. Yeah.
All right. Bent Westward says, Interstellar hit me in the feels with its scientific explains the supernatural themes. While the movie is hard sci-fi, there is also the ghost in Murphy's room explored in the first act. This theme is set up then forgotten about as the movie grows to a much grander in scale beyond the Earth. As Murphy is trapped in the wormhole, we are pulled back to Earth to the ghost seen from an entirely different perspective that pulls the movie together in an extremely satisfying and touching ending. The haunting explained through higher dimensional physics and gravitational manipulation was a bold move, but it definitely is memorable, even if the love is the one thing we're capable of perceiving that transcends dimensions of time and space was a bit of a stretch for the average moviegoer. I admire Nolan for swinging for the fences. Yeah, I always thought people were too hard on the movie for the whole like love is the answer idea because like as stated in the movie, it's just literally true. It's because it's like it's the fact that we love each other that causes us to go to these insane lengths to travel through space and time to do these things in the first place. So like the operative thing that causes all of the events of the movie to happen is in fact love. Just factually, that's what's happening. Like it's not even hokey.
Yeah. Remember when I didn't like this movie and I decided it meant I didn't like Christopher Nolan and I had a whole huge existential crisis about it, and then we started a podcast to deal with that, and then now we're here.
Yeah, I do.
I still don't know if I like Interstellar, but I do like Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
I think my problem with the theme is not the theme itself; it's that Anne Hathaway expresses the theme literally through saying those exact words.
Well, Chris Nolan likes to express his themes through the characters saying the exact words. I mean, we could do a whole tangent here about the difference between when Mike Flanagan has a character do a monologue and when Chris Nolan has a character do a monologue, because they're very different kinds of monologues, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot to be understood about how to make a monologue that works and how to make one that maybe doesn't work so well.
If Christopher Nolan wrote the rest is confetti monologue, he would then go into a detailed explanation of what exactly he means by confetti.
let me clarify that. Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah. I don't mean to speak ill of Christopher Nolan. I think he's a fantastic filmmaker and one of like the only like guaranteed box office winners in the world we live in. I can't wait for the Odyssey. It's going to be great. But yeah,
me too.
Yeah.
All right, let me quickly go through the rest of these. Michael Turn the Key says midichlorians in Star Wars Phantom Menace explaining the Force as microscopic symbiotic worms. This is a sarcastic answer. We want to be clear.
My 4-year-old son, when we got to episode 1, didn't like it either. I just, for the record, like even a 4-year-old is like,
yeah,
no, I don't like that.
Did you tell him while you were watching the movie, by the way, you don't have any?
I did not do that.
just watch his face crumple.
Oh my god. That's terrible.
Yeah. Thank you. Alan the Alien 93 says, James Randi's $1 Million Challenge, no one proves supernatural abilities under controlled conditions. Yeah, I mean, that's the real world version of this, is saying, prove it, and then nobody can.
Yeah, because it doesn't exist.
Yep. Party Knowledge 1873 says, grim TV show with increasingly comical natural explanations for supernatural creatures. But by grim meaning the TV show Grimm.
Yeah, you said that weird.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
The TV show is called Grimm.
I've never heard. I mean, I've heard the name. I didn't know that's what it was, though. BC Johnson says Highlander 2 as a terrible example ruined mystical immortals by making them aliens from the planet Zeist.
What?
I'm so glad I never saw Highlander 2.
I didn't know that. I wish I didn't know that now.
It's not true, Scott. He's lying.
Okay, good.
Per Jane says Buffy/supernatural characters accepting all supernatural elements except one seemingly random thing.
What is the random thing? I need to read Jody's answer here. I didn't see this.
Maybe it's let us know.
Okay.
Busy Dad 82 says John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness treating evil as unknowable contagion in Liquid Satan. Okay.
Huh?
Don't know anything about that.
Oh yeah, no, I know what he's talking about. Yeah, never mind.
Okay. Scarlet Claret says Children of the Night Vampires as rare genetic disorder creating shadow organ requiring blood. Makes sense.
Do you notice a theme that we like really want to scientifically explain vampires? I think it's because on some weird level we really want vampires to be real.
Yeah. They're a really great concept.
Yeah.
Steve Living Room CO says Ishmael's Adam and Eve as levers witnessing takers starting a totalitarian agriculture. What is Ishmael?
I think he's a Moby Dick.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Maybe this is a show. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what that is. Aqua Lungfish says Horizon Zero Dawn with robot dinosaurs explained by sad AI fond of extinct species. Yeah, trying to like preserve and bring things back, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Scotch Fully Yours says Assassin's Code vampires as evolutionary side tangent recruited by the Catholic Church. Of course. And Hobo Demon says Metal Gear Solid 2 supernatural elements are part of a metatextual video game simulator training.
What a wild game that was. I don't think 12-year-old me could handle what was happening there.
Yeah. I just want to mention my favorite from the vampires from Blind Sight, where they are the idea being that vampires were an actual hominid species that was a carnivore that had to feed on human meat to get some protein that they needed that they could only get from humans. And because humans have a very low population, they evolved to hibernate, meaning they would appear to be dead. And because they had to hunt humans, they had to be like stronger and faster than us. And because they were carnivores, they had to have pronounced canines. And they also had to be smarter than us to hunt us successfully. But then their intelligence caused there to be a glitch in their brain where if they ever saw intersecting right angles, they would have a seizure, which isn't a problem in the ancestral environment. But when people start building structures, you suddenly see a lot of right angles, which is why they're allergic to crosses. So I love it. I love Blind Sight.
I know. It's like your favorite book ever. It's a good book.
Yeah.
All right. Is that all of them?
Yes, that's all of them.
Cool. All right. So next week's question, or it'll actually be when we're on episode 2 of the Midnight Club. That's very fun. Will be what, Matt? What are we asking people?
What's your favorite YA/teen focused book of any kind?
Yeah, it could be the Midnight Club. It could be anything else. I think it's a really interesting genre that has changed many times over, I mean, since we were kids, right? What is popular in the genre kind of shifts all the time. I don't even know what's popular in the genre right now. Are we back to vampires again? Has it gone full circle?
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of different like subgenres now, you know?
Yeah.
There's the romantasy right now, which not that hasn't always kind of existed as a concept, but I think the name is new.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
So I just searched on Goodreads for readers' favorite young adult fan fiction, and the winner is a book called Fake Skating. It's a love story from YA and romance specialist Lynn Painter. Childhood friends reuniting as teenagers in their hockey-loving Minnesota hometown.
Sounds wholesome.
People really loving a hockey romance these days.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Cool.
It seems like there is a lot of romance right now. Yeah, number 3 is called Dating and Dragons.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of romance in this.
I guess Christopher Pike knew what he was doing by having all the characters be romance obsessed, because that's
it's kids.
What? Yeah, kids. Yep. Not us though.
Nope. We're dead inside. All right. That is it for us this week. Next week we begin Mike Flanagan's The Midnight Club with episode 1. Oh shoot, I had it up what the episode title was, and then I closed it right before I started reading, and I am buying as much time as I possibly can to get this back open. It is titled The Final Chapter. You get it, Matt? Because it's the first episode that's called The Final Chapter.
Awesome.
It's clever.
Exciting.
Yeah. Oh man, it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
It starts next week.
That's right. Remember, you can reach us via email at flanagan'swakepod@gmail.com, on Twitter at flanagan'swake19, and the best place to answer that discussion question is over on the subreddit at reddit.com/r/doofmedia. Don't forget that you can find every episode in video format on YouTube and Spotify. And if you're watching on either of those platforms, then please give us a comment letting us know what you think.
Yeah, we really appreciate those comments, folks. You've been doing a good job. I'm trying to respond to them if I can. If I'm a little slow, please forgive me. But we really do appreciate that. We also appreciate if you guys want some merch, that there's a place to do that. You can head on over to doofmedia.myshopify.com. I just want to say, Matt, our continued highest selling mug as of today, the 24th of February, is if you podcast me, then podcast me, a tiny stupid little joke we made at the beginning of an episode of Wizard and Glass, and it's just my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I love that every once in a while, like, we'll see someone buy it, and I think me and Jody are always like, I wonder what episode they were listening to that made them rush to the store and buy this silly mug.
Yeah.
But there's this mug. There's tons of other stuff on there: shirts, hoodies, stickers, all the whole 9 yards. It's great. It's a lot of fun stuff. So head on over to doofmedia.myshopify.com and check that out.
Yeah, and if you like any of our other shows and you want to support us, please consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/doofmedia. We just released an episode of To a From podcast pretty recently, and another one is surely in the works. Having a lot of fun with that show right now, so go check it out.
We are almost at the end of season 2, and it's been a great amount of time. We just want to remind you folks always that you can donate at a monetary level there, but you can also just join as a free subscriber. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of time. We're currently sitting as of right now at 923 members. So we're moving on up. It's happening, and you guys are a part of it. So if you haven't done that yet, it's completely free. Head over to Doof Media. It's patreon.com/doofmedia. There is bonus stuff we're going to be launching there. It's a great way to stay in contact with us. There's chats that you can chat with us. There's posts. Not all of it is locked behind the paywall that some of our other subscribers get. It's probably the best place if you want to stay in contact with us. So yeah, that's patreon.com/doofmedia. Another way to help us out, if you want to help us out, that doesn't cost a single solitary penny, is to share the podcast. Please do that. Please share the podcast. Please leave ratings and reviews on any podcast app you listen to. I did it, Matt. Last week, I tried to, while I was doing the outro, bring up a review that we got on Audible. I wasn't able to do that last week. It didn't really work out, but I have it ready, Matt. I have it ready.
Right.
So we got a 5-star review on Audible from Jason M. He says, insightful and hilarious discussion. I did have to knock a star off because as I listened to Dr. Sleep today, Matt made a comment about being tied in knots, and Scott, very out of character, didn't make some variation of a tied up in true knots joke. Kind of mad at past self now. However, I did add 1 star back for each piece of insightful commentary that shed thought-provoking light on material I have rewatched and dissected vehemently. But since the fascists at Audible don't allow ratings into thousands, I had to settle for 5 stars. That's thank you. Jason goes on, but I'm only going to read that part.
Well, thank you, Jason.
He does say at the very end, Scott, if you were still reading this on the podcast, I am both impressed and honored to contribute to the immense runtime. Also, please say hi to Sebastian and Arya. Hello, Sebastian and Arya.
Well, thank you. So I know that platform doesn't account for that many stars, but I'm going to account for that many stars. So that brings our podcast rating up to 11 stars.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for those stars. And thanks, everyone. We really do appreciate those. I do see those reviews coming in, so you guys are doing great. We appreciate it. It does help. I always say this. It's always true. Y'all are great. Y'all are all great.
Yeah.
You make this so much fun.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, we will see you back here next week for episode 1 of The Midnight Club. Matt, I'm weirdly excited about this. Like, maybe it's not weirdly, but like, do I feel more excited than I was for Midnight Mass? I don't think so, but maybe.
Oh, interesting.
I guess I'm excited to get back to the dynamic where you don't know shit. I think that's really exciting for
me. Good. Yeah. It's definitely more comfortable.
Yeah.
For both of us.
All right, folks, we will see you next week for that episode. Until then, listen to the master, Mr. Flanagan. Don't worry about death.
Don't worry about it.
Unless there's like a car driving right at you, in which case.
It's just death. It's not bad.
Probably get out of the way. Maybe.
Death is fine, actually.
Who are you and what have you done with Matt Freeman?